Hello, welcome back to Old Saul. I'm JD Adler. Old Saul, of course, is where I recite stories, Grimm's fairy tales, and specifically from the complete fairy tales of the brothers Grimm, as translated by Jack Zipes. I'm going to do there's 242 stories here. Each episode I'm going to do one until I've gone through all of them. So, for those of you keeping track at home, that's 242 episodes. Jack Zipes claims that this is the most complete collection of Grimm's fairy tales, including some stories that were never published, as well as being previously, obviously, as well as being he claims, the truest translation from the German of the time, the early 1800s, to the English of the time that he translated it, 1987. I'll leave it up to the audience to decide whether he achieved his goals there, but I'm going to be going through all of these stories. Today's episode is called The Marvelous Minstrel. It's an odd story. All Grimm's fairy tales in general are odd. Not like the Disney-fied fairy tale stories that you're used to with happy endings and everything's nice. They're dark, they're often violent, quite often racist, and sexist, always sexist. The female characters are almost always two-dimensional, and at the whim of their kings or fathers or whatever. This story in particular, like the last one, unclear exactly what the point of the story is. It is just an odd story about the world. I think it's about the world, or maybe it's just an odd story. Anyway, it's called The Marvelous Minstrel. I'll leave it here for your entertainment. Once upon a time, there was a marvelous minstrel who walked through a forest all alone and thought about all kinds of things. When there was nothing more to think about, he said, when there was nothing, right out the bat, that threw me. When there was nothing more to think about, he said to himself, I'm getting bored here in the forest, and I need to get myself a good companion. He took his fiddle from his back and began playing a tune that resounded through the trees. It was not long before a wolf came trotting through the thicket. Ah, here comes a wolf. I don't have any desire to see a wolf, said the musician, but the wolf came closer and said to him, Oh, dear musician, what's that lovely tune you're playing? I'd love to learn to play that way too. You can easily do it, responded the minstrel. You only have to do as I say. Oh, minstrel, the wolf said, I'll obey you just as a pupil obeys his teacher. The minstrel told him to come along, and after they had walked some distance together, they came to an old oak tree that was hollow inside and split down the middle. Look here, said the minstrel. If you want to learn how to fiddle, you must put your front paw, into this crack. The wolf obeyed, but the minstrel quickly picked up a stone, and with one blow he wedged the wolf's front paw in so tightly that the beast was forced to stay there, like a prisoner. Wait here until I get back, said the minstrel, and he went on his way. After a while, he said to himself once more, I'm getting bored here in the forest, and I need to get myself another companion. He took his fiddle, played another tune that was heard throughout the forest. It was not long before a fox came slinking through the trees. Ah, here comes the fox, said the minstrel. I don't have any desire to see a fox. The fox came up to him and said, Oh, dear minstrel, what's that lovely tune you're playing? I'd love to learn to play that way too. You can easily do it, said the minstrel. You only have to do as I say. Oh, minstrel. There's a typo. That's why I was confused. It says wolf again. Threw me off. You can easily do it, said the minstrel. You only have to do as I say. Oh, minstrel, the fox said, I'll obey you just as a pupil obeys his teacher. I found a typo in this edition where it says wolf here instead of fox. Completely threw me off for a second. Anyway, the pupil obeys his teacher. Follow me, said the minstrel. After they had walked some distance, they came to a footpath with tall bushes on either side. The minstrel stopped, grabbed hold of a little hazel tree, and bent it down to the ground. Then he held the top down with his foot while he bent another little hazel tree down from the other side. Well now, my little fox, he said, if you want to learn something, give me your left front paw. The fox obeyed, and the minstrel bound the paw to the tree on the left. Now give me your right front paw. He bound this one to the tree on the right. After he made sure the knots were tight enough, he let go, and the little tree shot up into the air and jerked the fox right up high, so he was left dangling in the air. Wait here till I get back, said the minstrel, and he went his way. Once again, he said to himself, I'm getting bored in the forest and need to get another companion. So he took his fiddle, and the sounds reverberated throughout the forest. And then a little hare came hopping toward him. Here comes a hare, said the minstrel. I didn't want a hare. Oh, dear minstrel, the little hare said, what's the lovely tune you're playing? I'd love to play that way too. You can easily do it, said the minstrel. You only have to do as I say. Oh, minstrel, the little hare answered, I'll obey you just as a pupil obeys his teacher. They walked some distance together until they came to a clearing in the forest where an aspen tree was standing. The minstrel tied a long cord around the little hare's neck and attached the other end to the tree. Move lively, little hare, the minstrel cried out. I want you to run around this tree 20 times. The little hare obeyed, and after he had done that 20 times, the cord was wrapped around the tree, and the little hare was trapped. No matter how much he pulled or tugged, he only made the cord cut deeper into his soft neck. Wait here till I get back, said the minstrel, and he went off. In the meantime, the wolf had yanked and pulled and bitten on the stone. He kept working at it until he finally freed his paws and drew them out of the crack. Bursting with anger and fury, he rushed after the minstrel, intending to tear him to pieces. When the fox saw him running along, he began to wail and scream with all his might, Brother Wolf, come help me, the minstrel has tricked me. The wolf pulled the trees down to the ground, bit the rope in two, and freed the fox, who went with him to get revenge on the minstrel. They found the little hare tied up and released him as well. Now all three began searching for their enemy. As the minstrel walked along his way, he played his fiddle once again, but this time he was more fortunate. The sounds reached the ears of a poor woodcutter who was instantly compelled to stop working whether he wanted to or not, and he went to listen to the music with his axe under his arm. Here comes the right companion at last, said the minstrel. I never wanted beasts in the first place, just humans. Now he began to play so beautifully and so delightfully that the poor man stood there as if he were under a magic spell, and his heart leapt for joy. As he was standing there, the wolf, the fox, and the little hare came running up, and he could see they had something evil in mind. So he raised his glittering axe and stood in front of the minstrel as if to say, whoever wants him had better watch out, because I'll have to deal with me first. The animals were frightened by this and ran back into the forest while the minstrel played one more tune for the woodcutter out of gratitude. Then he moved on his way. And that's the end of that story. That's the end of the story. Why? Is there a moral to that story? The animals were all very nice, wanted to be his companion and learn his trade. Nah, he screwed them over. The woodcutter was just trying to do his job, and he got sucked in by this siren-like call and defended him against them. And then he just went on his way. He was just this selfish jerk. Musicians are selfish jerks. Is that the lesson of the story? It's not entirely false. Just kidding, musicians. Don't send letters. Letters. I don't know what the point of that story was. Beware of wandering musicians, I guess. They're jerks. There you go. That was that story. Next up will be the 12 Brothers, which is a more interesting story slightly. But we'll talk about that next time. This has been Old Saw. I'm JD Adler. You can go to jdadler.com if you like my storytelling style. There are free stories. There are also books you can buy. Have a lovely day. Be safe.